And we're live now, should be on YouTube. So, all right, I think we have everyone here, and it's 2 o'clock. Everyone still here okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So it's 2 o'clock on April 23rd, 2020. It's the special call meeting of the Johnson County Fiscal Court. We are conducting this meeting via teleconference. We do have a quorum present. We have all three commissioners, Kathy Atkins, Mike Jarrell, and Tim Sire present, as well as myself. And so we do have a quorum. If you can see behind me, obviously we have the flag. So let us stand and begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which it stands, one nation,
Under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I do have a few announcements that we would like to share. Obviously, we're not able to get this out right now to on live broadcast to the general public, but it's still information I think will be helpful for all of us. The first item for discussion for announcements would be the things related to the COVID-19 or coronavirus. Just to pass along some information, as you all are hearing, that the amount of testing is increasing. Some questions have arisen about testing in Johnson County. We have several providers in Johnson County that have been testing for several weeks now. But once again, up until yesterday, you had to have a symptom in order to be able to be tested. But the governor announced yesterday that some of the locations that are partnering with the state are now testing even without a symptom. But that doesn't mean that individual providers are doing that. But we do have a lot of providers in Johnson County that are testing. We still, to date, only have the one positive case here in Johnson County. But as testing continues, we could see more cases. But some folks ask, are we testing in Johnson County? Yes, absolutely. There's several providers that are testing in Johnson County. Another discussion related to the coronavirus is obviously the reopening of the economy, and I hope that everybody has been watching. The information has been provided by the governor and by Washington. They seem to somewhat be consistent with one another in most cases about reopening the economy, and so I think we'll start to see that as we move forward. I think there was an announcement yesterday that some of the medical procedures that have been that previously had been ordered to not take place are now taking place, or can start taking place on Monday. And so I think we're starting to see some activity there at the reopening of the economy. We all know that it is taking its toll on our local economy. There is a lot of support out there for small business. There was some additional funding in the SBA for SBA PPL program day before yesterday by the federal government. We have a lot of businesses, several businesses here in Johnson County that have applied and have been approved for that Small Business Administration payroll protection loan program, which some of that can be forgiven if you hire back within a certain period of time. But having said all that, as we continue to watch all this develop, we have our fiscal year 21 budget coming up. We have our first reading next month. Betty and I have already had some preliminary discussions. We're starting to gather information as it comes in. We're starting to get our insurance renewals, some of our funds, projections of what those fund values will be for next year. But it is going to have an impact because obviously the occupational tax is one of our two key sources of revenue, that being occupational tax and property tax. We know that we're going to have an impact on the occupational tax part of it. But Etta is going to try to, I've asked her to take a look at trying to do some comparisons for the first 3 months of 2020 versus the first 3 months of 2019 to try to get some idea of how much of impact that this will have. But Betty and I have already discussed, at least in preliminary discussions, that we will make an adjustment in our budget down because we know that occupational tax receipts will be less. It's just a matter of how much less at this point, but we'll try to quantify that in the coming weeks. And especially after the end of the month closes, we will be receiving occupational tax returns. So they give us some idea of where we are with receipts and as we go into the budget. But it's going to be a bit of a challenging budget. County road aid projections came out 3 days ago, and that was a 12% reduction in county road aid. That's significant dollars. Coal severance is, those projections have already been provided. Rough numbers, we were at about 175 last year. This year's projections 128,000, and that projection could go even lower because there's still obviously 3 months of limited activity in the mining industry. Is already limited to begin with, but it's even more limited now because some mines aren't even operating at all during this period of time. And so obviously the whole pandemic is having an impact on everybody, including Johnson County, but we will work through it. We'll get the numbers as close as we possibly can, and the projections, and we'll pull all the information together to try to get a budget together. But we will be seeing a first reading of a budget next month. So just know that the testing is still going on, that there's discussions in the works to reopen the economy. I think, let me say this too, our local businesses that are still open, I think have done an exceptionally good job of being creative in trying to keep their businesses going. They're doing a lot of things that you might not see otherwise, but they're doing it because they're trying to do whatever they have to keep business coming. And so I think they've done an exceptionally good job with that. That's really all I had on comments on the COVID-19 coronavirus right now. You all are as up to speed on it as I am as far as watching what goes on. Does anybody have any questions or comments about any of that and how that impacts what we do as a county? Okay. The next thing I wanted to mention in announcements is we had a plan for an anti-littering contest that was going to happen in the school systems, but unfortunately, they're not going to be back in session. Schools aren't at all this year. And so Monica, she had been working with Erica at Soil Conservation on that project anyway. And so we had some discussions about trying to retool their thinking on that and try to come up with a program or a contest, anti-littering contest that kids can do from home, because that's where they are, and could submit it from home. They had a great idea, by the way, for if school was still in session, they were going to have the different groups actually do artwork on garbage cans, so that was something that would be around for a while. So it wouldn't be just on a piece of paper, a drawing or something that might get, kind of lost on the shelf or tossed away. They were actually going to do something with a physical garbage can to be a reminder for anti-littering promotion. So instead of that, since they aren't going to be in school to do that, they came up, Monica and Erica came up with a contest that is going to encourage folks to be able to do artwork, even digital artwork in the contest. Apple Valley stepped up and was a sponsor for that. There's going to be 4 grade groups in this contest, and each winner, each first place for each grade group will get a $100 cash prize, and second place will get a $50 cash prize. And Apple Valley Sanitation provided that opportunity. And so you will probably see some things out if you haven't already. I think that started yesterday, started promoting that, because those are going to be due back. The entries will be due back May 15th. So while it isn't the anti-littering contest campaign that we had hoped for, I think that they've done a good job of putting together an alternative under the circumstances to still get kids working on it and give them a project and something to think about going forward, because we plan to use the winning slogans and the winning artworks in future campaigns as we go forward. So just watch for that. For those of you on social media, I think Monica is promoting that on social media, and Erica as well, pushing it out through their organization. With solid waste, I would also say that you mentioned too that you all should have received by email a flyer yesterday for the countywide cleanup. The countywide cleanup was somewhat in question because of the social distancing requirements that are in place. But Charles and Monica, they've had discussions. We had a conference call, myself and Charles and Monica, about a week or so ago, because we really felt like we needed to come with some plan that could still deliver a countywide cleanup opportunity for everybody in Johnson County, that is compliant with the solid waste ordinance and has an account in good standing with Apple Valley. So basically, if you look at the flyer that we emailed you yesterday, which now has gone out, and I think Regina mentioned to me just a bit ago that I think that had 250 shares, I think, already online on social media. So there's obviously some traffic with it. We're happy to provide the opportunity, but a couple things just in case people ask you, so that you have an understanding of kind of what we're going to be doing. We're still going to be doing the voucher program like we did last year, because that brought a great deal of value to accountability to the program, and help to keep things from happening with the program that shouldn't be, that keep it more equitable and more fair. So we're still doing the voucher program. You still have to have an account in good standing with Apple Valley or be compliant with solid waste ordinance in order to be able to drop off these items, and it'll be at no cost. Here's one of the key differences. You have to call Apple Valley ahead of time and let them know that you want to participate in the program, and then they will in turn mail you the voucher to your house, and then they will also tell you what week. If you notice on the dates, it's May 11th through the 30th. That's actually a 3-week period. So what they're going to do is they're going to assign which week you come based upon your last name. And so whenever you call in to get that voucher, they will mail that to you. That you will get a letter in the mail with that voucher, and that letter will explain all the details, but it will also give you the week to which that you should bring your items in and drop them off. What that does is does a couple things. One, that protects both the customers and the employees of Apple Valley and the office staff, because there will not be any contact with the office staff, so that maintains the social distancing requirements. And also too, it allows them to regulate the number of people coming in on the lot to maintain social distancing on the property itself as people would drop things off. So that's the one change. But last year, you could actually drive up there with the stuff in your truck or on your trailer. You could go in, get your voucher, and then unload your items and handle it that way. This year, we're having to add an extra step in order to protect both the customers and employees, so that there's no issues about social distancing. So you call. They will check your compliance with the solid waste ordinance, your good standing with Apple Valley. They will mail you a voucher. The voucher will have a letter with it that will tell you the week to which that you bring your stuff and drop it off. It will be one of those 3 weeks beginning May the 11th through May the 30th. Same things will apply. No items like tires, paint, construction materials, those type things. So all that stays the same, but that's the key difference is you have to get your voucher mailed to you in advance. So any comments or questions there about that program? I will tell you this, and I appreciate Charles Lusk and Apple Valley working with us, because it was a little bit challenging for them to try to figure out how to maintain safety among employees and customers. But I think that at least, even though there's one additional step this year to this program, it does still provide the opportunity for folks to participate in the countywide cleanup. So if you're on social media, promote the flyer. It specifically says they have to call Apple Valley to obtain their voucher prior to dropping off their items. So that's the key to it. But we're glad to be able to offer that again this year. The next thing I had announcement-wise, and this will be the last thing, and that is we've been really pushing the census in the last few days. We've been pushing it all along, but we're really putting a hard push on it now. I recorded 3 public service announcements yesterday. Superintendent Tom Cochran and I recorded a public service announcement yesterday as well. So those are on social media. They're going on the radio. Big Sandy RECC contacted me yesterday. They're going to post public service announcements on their media, all through all their channels that they push information out on. So we really need to push the census. We're doing it. We're doing good. I think we were at 46.8%, I believe, as of about 3 days ago. I think we now are a little over 48%. The radio interview I did yesterday with Adam, we kind of set a goal that we'd like to see Johnson County be at 60% by Monday, because when you see these hard pushes for the census, we start to see bumps in 5% or so over every 2 days when you really push the census. So, you know, make sure that you can do your part to get this out. You all know the value of getting a good participation in the census, because it affects so many programs in the community. If folks get government assistance, it affects that funding. It affects our roads, our veterans programs, our seniors, utilities. I mean, roads. It affects everything really that we all benefit from. So please push the census and completion of that. Remember that it's online this year for the first time in history. If you've done it, I hope all of you have. It's probably 5-minute process. I mean, it's about as simple as it can get. So please take advantage of that opportunity to be able to do the census online. If you don't like online, you can still mail it in, and you can actually even call in, and they will assist you with completing the census. So please push the census. That's a big opportunity for us. And remember that this is an opportunity that's here this year, and the decisions we make related to the census is going to impact us for the next 10. So it's very, very important that we participate. So does anybody have any thoughts on how we might be able to promote more, or what we should do differently related to the census?
I'll just say I did do a video, just a short clip, just on social media, Facebook, and it had like 750 views, reached over 1,500 people, 20-some shares. So, I mean, it's kind of a 6-man rule. If everybody done a little something, it really goes a long way. To 30-second video.
Yeah, it does. It's a matter of just continuing to keep it out in front of people. And the other thing to keep in mind, some folks may be limited to internet access or something like that. But if they come to town, if they come to Paintsville at all, you know, there are locations that have Wi-Fi around some of the businesses. I think there's also a free hotspot now down at the rec center. So there's places where people can come if they've got a smartphone. You know, you can do it on your phone too. So take advantage of those opportunities. Let us all continue to push and make sure our family and our friends have all completed the census. Sometimes it's kind of like Sally would attest to this. It's kind of like our rights, our opportunity and privilege to vote. We take that for granted, and we don't always exercise our rights there. The census is not one of those things. It's a privilege for us to be able to participate in this, because it brings value and change to this community. So anyway, I would encourage you to please continue to push the census. We have one item on the agenda today to take action on, and that is approval of the first reading of a budget amendment for fiscal year 20. That's our current fiscal year that ends June 30. And let me say in general, and Betty, please feel free to comment on anything about the budget amendment, because you're the one who's put this together. But in general, a budget amendment is done when we have realized receipts that were not budgeted back when we approved it in July, beginning July 1 of last year. And so we want to try to be fully accountable for the things that we receive. So this is not a bad thing. Let me say that first. It's not a budget amendment does not mean it's bad. In our case, a budget amendment means it's actually a good thing, because we've taken in, and we'll go over in just a second briefly, but we've actually received as a county more than what we had originally budgeted for certain items, and so that's a good thing. But it is a process. It's a process that takes one reading today. It also requires the budget amendment to go to the Department of Local Government for their review and approval. Then it comes back and for a second reading, and then we have to publish it, and then the ordinance actually becomes part of our budget for this current fiscal year. Betty, did I leave anything out with the process? Okay. Mike, I think this is an ordinance, correct?
yes, technically it is an ordinance.
Okay, so this will be a first reading of an ordinance, which means that it takes a motion and a second, and then we'll move it on, just like we do the budget. Then we will move it to the Department of Local Government for their consideration, then back to us for a second reading, and then a publication, and then it would be in effect in our budget. But just briefly, just so that we're all up to speed on the items that are on the budget, and some of them are fairly self-explanatory because the values directly correspond on the receipt side to the expenditure side, but nevertheless, we'll go over them real quickly. The first one is a state grant for $21,273.99. That was a grant that we were awarded to clean up 3 illegal dumps. And so you can see the corresponding expense in Section B. It says solid waste collection, other contracted services. So that was a grant that we did not know, that we had not received or been awarded when we approved our budget back last July or last June. So that's for cleanup of 3 illegal dumps. Let me say this as well. We also are working with NRCS to get, and I think we've been approved for cleaning up 3 additional dumps. And I don't know if Monica can come on and if she can unmute and confirm that, but have we already been awarded the funding for the 3?
Yes, that's correct. We've been awarded so a total of 6 dumps now to be cleaned up. So 3 with soil conservation and the 3 that the 21,000 you were just discussing.
Okay,
so.
And we have not put those out to bid yet. She's working on the bid packages on those now, and they'll actually kind of be 2 different processes. Because one funding came through the state, the other came through soil conservation. So we'll have to deal with those independently, but collectively, it's all to clean up illegal dumps. The second item, and any of you all stop me if you have questions as we go through this. The second item is a state grant for $100,000. That is our energy efficiency grant that we were awarded last year. That's going to help us to upgrade all the lighting in the downtown courthouse building. It's also going to provide funding for replacement of some of the doors in the lobby. Primarily, we're going to install a ADA compliant handicap accessible door in the main lobby to provide assistance to those who have special needs. So that's the $100,000 energy efficiency grant. That has no match with it. That's just $100,000 that we were awarded to help with those type projects. Which, by the way, that work is going to start. We have the contract that's been provided to us. Mike and I have not discussed the content of the contract. I'm working through some of the dollar amounts on the contract right now because they're providing some additional services. Perfection Group that's who the court had chosen to help facilitate the expending of these funds for this project. So we're working through some of the financial part of it right now, but then Mike and I will have a discussion about the contract to make sure that we get where we want to be on it, and then it'll come to the court for approval in the very, very near future. So, but that work should start within the next couple of months. We're also going to, we're looking at doing the work, as we've talked about, some of the outside work on the building, trying to do some repair on the windows and things like that, and some painting. That's all going to be part of this whole project at one time. The next item is the federal grant of $7,502.47. That is the grant that we were awarded from ARC Flex E that we utilized for the community strategic plan. So that again was a grant that we did not know about at the time we approved our budget last year, but nevertheless, that's funds that we have received in. And you can see there's a corresponding expenditure for that down in Section B also. Flex grant is related to the road department, the $286,500. That is comprised of, we were awarded $150,000 in emergency funding to replace the Trimble Lane Bridge. We have also been approved and awarded $100,000 to replace the Tiny Branch Bridge. And we were awarded $36,500 to replace the drainage structure at Baker Branch through the 80/20 bridge program. And so if you add those three together, the 150 for Trimble Lane, the 100 for Tiny Branch, and the 36,500 for Baker Branch, you should get a total of $286,500. Those are all monies that we did not know about at the time we approved our budget last year, but we've since been awarded those through the road department. Philip worked really hard in getting those secured and getting the documentation to Frankfurt to get that done, and we appreciate that very much. So that's what comprises the 286,500, and you see the corresponding expense in section B for the same amount. The next item is transportation cabinet, 376,109.27. That's where we received discretionary funding last fall for some paving projects. That was again not known at the time we passed our budget, but nevertheless the county was fortunate enough to receive that funding. So we need to amend that into our budget, 376,109.27. That work is already complete. We've already been reimbursed for all that work, but nevertheless we have the corresponding expense in section B for that. The next item is the federal grant for $14,000. That is for, we have two there, 14 and 14.4. One is for the sheriff's vehicle through the USDA. The other is for the coroner's vehicle through USDA grant funding. I don't remember which one is which, but one is the sheriff's vehicle and one is the coroner's. We have been awarded those. We have been awarded those funds, which there's a possibility that we could get completed by the end of June, but nevertheless, we need to amend that into our budget in the event that it should occur. But just by way of reminder, the sheriff's vehicle is about a $40,000 vehicle. We received $14,000 in USDA grant, and then the remaining $26,000 is going to come from coal severance. On the coroner's vehicle, we again, it's about a $40,000 vehicle, $14,000 in grant funds, $5,000 from the sale of a surplus vehicle will go toward the payment of that, as well as over $6,000 in area development funds that we've already accessed as well. So that left a balance, I think, of somewhere around $12,000 or so that would come from coal severance to complete that acquisition of that. And let me say this, sometimes the questions arise about the coroner and about their functions and what they do. We need to be reminded that, the coroner is responsible for, for obviously transporting those who have passed away. If it's something that is not immediately assignable to a funeral home for them to pick up the individual. The coroner also has to transport bodies to Frankfurt. And this particular vehicle, as we've talked about, will allow him a more safe for transportation purposes, as well as it's going to allow him flexibility because of some of the areas he has to go in order to provide services. So anyway, those are two grants that we have been approved for that we hope to facilitate in the next few months. Any questions so far on any of those?
When do we expect to get the coroner vehicle? Is it going to be around the last of June? Is that what I understood?
I think, Regina, that we're still waiting on the letter from the USDA that gives us the green light to go ahead and procure the vehicle. I think the intention is once we get the green light for procurement or purchase of the vehicle, we're going to purchase that through a state contract vendor, and then the vehicle goes to Lawrenceburg to a vendor in Lawrenceburg that will actually fit the vehicle up with all the coroner equipment on it. Correct, Regina?
Yes.
So I guess, Tim, to answer your question, it's going to depend on when we get that green light letter, so to speak, from USDA that says, yes, you can go buy the vehicle now. And we don't have that, but now we talked to USDA in the last week or so, I think.
I talked to Doug yesterday and he asked for another document, and Ed and I worked and got that to him yesterday.
Okay.
So it's just
Doug,
a process.
Do what?
It's just a process with the USDA. So
yeah, Doug is referring to as Doug Hoff. He's the USDA representative that facilitates and processes all of our grants. Tim, I think once we can get the go ahead to get the vehicle, I think it'll go obviously much quicker, because then in some cases that's actually within our control, because we can purchase the vehicle and then get it scheduled to be fitted up. Same thing with the sheriff's vehicle. I think his vehicle actually goes to the same location, I believe. Maybe they're in Lawrenceburg. That particular vendor, they will also fit up the sheriff's vehicle as well. So hopefully, yes. We'd like to think by the end of June. It's just going to depend on when we get the letter to say we can buy the vehicle.
Okay.
The next item on the budget amendment is the coal severance for $256,000. That is funds that we did not budget in the beginning of our fiscal year. This was excess funds from the previous fiscal year from coal severance that we didn't know that we were going to receive. So we've now amended those. We're now asking for those to be amended into the budget. The next one is a state grant. It says $560,000. This is the funds that are going to be used for the acquisition of property at Hager Hill, as well as the necessary due diligence items to make that acquisition. And that's funds that we did not have budgeted, but yet that's going to come from the single county coal severance fund that is assigned to Johnson County, that's held by Department of Local Government in Frankfort. And so that money will be coming in basically any day. All the documents have been signed. The request for distribution of funds has been made. So we should see that pretty soon. I had to provide some additional documentation yesterday, but we've already done that. So that'll come in, and then that will basically come in, and then it'll go back out for the acquisition of the property. The last item it can be a little confusing, but I'll try to make it as simple as I can. AOC is obviously Administrative Office of the Courts. This is related to our Judicial Center. The $679,612.50. If you look down in the section B in the expenditure side of the ledger, you will see the last two items down there that says Justice Center principal on bonds and interest on bonds. If you add those two together, that totals the $679,612.50. The reason we're having to amend this into the budget is that the county has possession of an additional $300 and some thousand that was remaining from the original Judicial Center project. The ownership of those funds is still yet to be determined, but nevertheless, those funds were included in the budget a few years ago as cash assigned to the county. And so when those funds were placed in our budget, that the auditors at that point felt like, or advised us, I guess they didn't feel like it, they advised us that we then would need to budget for the bonds, the principal and interest related to the bonds of the Judicial Center. The reason that's significant is because under normal circumstances, you don't have to include the principal and interest of the bonds in our budget. But because we had these additional funds that still are yet to be resolved, but yet they were included in our budget before actually 2 fiscal years ago, when those were included in the budget, that actually then now requires us to include principal and interest on these bonds. Principal and interest on the bonds is a pass-through. We basically receive the funds, and then the funds go right. They come in from AOC and they go right back out to service the bond indebtedness. So that's a pass-through. But nevertheless, if you go back and look at previous audits, you may or may not see a reference to these principal and interest on these bonds, and it's because of those additional funds that have now put us in a position where that we have to report this principal and interest. It's somewhat of a confusing process, but I will leave it at this to say this, that last item is being done primarily at the request of the auditors in order to be compliant with the auditors. But if I can make that any muddier, just ask me another question about it, and I'll do my best to. So that's what we have for the budget amendment items. Any questions about any of them?
Just one question, Mark. Just the only one that didn't match up, and I don't know if I may have dozed or just missed what you said, but it was on the coal severance 246, and then down on the B side of 274. Is that money we added to that total to accomplish something that come out of the general fund? Or?
Betty, can you comment on that? You have to unmute your mic, please. Hang on, let me try.
Kick herself out.
Okay, that includes the 14,000 for the coroner's vehicle and the 14,400 for the sheriff's vehicle. When you include those with the co-severance money, 246, that'll bring you up to the 274.
Thank you. I must have missed that if it was said. Thank you.
I'm glad you asked. Thank you. Any other questions on those?
May I also add that some of these monies have already, we've done a transfer to the coroner's vehicle and sheriff's vehicle line. And also from the co-severance money, we've given the fire departments a certain amount of that too. So some of that co-severance is already being distributed.
Yeah, thank you. So overall, we're having a budget amendment, even though it's quite a process and folks don't generally like to go through the process of a budget amendment. We're doing so because it's a good reason. It's a good thing. And about all of these cases, it's because the county was fortunate enough to realize revenues that we just did not anticipate at the time we began our fiscal year. And so it's a good thing that we're having to do this because we now have additional revenues we did not anticipate. Any other questions or comments about them? If not, then we would just need a motion and a second to approve the first reading of the budget amendment.
I make a motion, we approve first reading of the budget amendments.
We have a motion to approve the first reading by Commissioner Salyer. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Gerald. That's all we need to move this forward, and we will get that sent to GLG for their consideration and hopefully their approval. And as soon as we get that turned back around, we will have another meeting to take care of the second reading to consider it. That being said, it is a special call meeting. That's the last item on the agenda. Thanks, folks. We'll try to work on the live broadcast of this. I'm not sure what the feedback issue is, but at least I think this part of the meeting we did much better. I was able to do a little better job of hosting today, so thank you for your patience. And with that, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Before we adjourn, Mark, I'd just like to comment something about Betty. I really appreciate how she gets all these funds together and breaks it down to where we can see what's going on and stuff. And if we have questions about it, she's always willing to answer them and stuff. I just like to thank her for that.
Thank you.
I think that's very appropriate. I appreciate her too. And I think we all do. Because your own financially, we're only as good as those who manage our funds and our numbers and give us the information that we.
She works hard, and that's her job.
Sorry, Kathy. I think we lost you. No,
I think so. It's okay.
There you are. Sorry, Kathy. But I agree. We do appreciate it. Thank you, Betty, for putting that together for us. We appreciate it very much. And you also have the supporting documentation for all of these in your packets as well that was emailed to you. So
okay.
So hopefully that will give you the additional explanation that if you need some on those items. So, all right, we have a motion and a second to adjourn. So all in favor?
Yes.
All right, any opposed? All right.
I don't know if you got a second on that motion to adjourn.
I got you.
Okay.
I didn't get the motion on the second. Who made the motion and who made the second?
Tim made the motion and Mikey made the second.
Okay, thank you.
All right. All right. Thank you all. We stand adjourned. Thank you.